Games with very distinct visual style come along every once in a while and just sort of blow a big hole in what we expect from graphics. I'm Falcon, and today gameranx brings you 10 of the most visually unique video games. Just a quick note, this is part 1 of a series that's going to be ongoing. It's obviously very hard to hit all of the games that are visually distinct, so if there's one you really would like to see us cover, hit us up in the comments. Number 10 is OKAMI, which was beautiful when it came out, but when it got an HD remaster, it really emphasized all of the parts of the game that made it so incredibly unique. For one, you don't play as a lot of quadrupedal animals in video games anymore. It used to be something that would happen. There was The Lion King back in the 90s, which is one of honestly the better platformers of the time, despite being a licensed game, but not a whole lot since then. That in of itself lended a visual quality to it that just seemed different from everything else. You played as a white fox. In some ways it took inspiration from Zelda in more ways than one, but its visual style was just above and beyond what you would expect really from anything. It looks like a very different kind of cartoon. It basically looks like if you combine Jet Set Radio with traditional Japanese art, and it has such just a gorgeous, out-of-this-world look to it that it achieves with such a subdued palette that includes some large flourishes of color from time to time. I mean, it's not dim or gray by any means, but it's just every bit a game that deserves to be on a unique looking game list. Number 9, Transistor from Supergiant Games continued a tradition that was created with the isometric Bastion, but at the same time went the complete opposite direction. While there are certainly cues that you might sense from Bastion in it, one is a lush and natural looking game, while Transistor places you in the middle of a cold, futuristic city that just nails the idea of a hostile environment embedded within an urban environment just below the surface, waiting to take you out should you become a problem, so to speak. Transistor is a game that's both unique through its color palette as well as being the exact opposite, but being consistent in its own weird way with its predecessor. Supergiant Games are fricking experts. Number 8 is CUPHEAD, which is an amazingly cool looking game in my opinion, taking inspiration from old Disney shorts like Steamboat Willie and making a full game out of it, and it looks exactly like those things, down to the video artifacts that you see in old color cartoons. What's interesting is that even though Disney has made games, there still has not been a game that looks like this game ever before. It's such a phenomenally cool means of being both unique and retro in your own way, and the animation is so smooth. It's seriously just such a good looking game. It had to have been animated like a traditional cartoon. Except CUPHEAD was not made by a studio, it's an indie game. They got a little bit of help from Microsoft to make it, but I don't know if you saw everything in the early stages, it looked amazing from day one. Number 7 is KATAMARI DAMACY, which I don't think you can talk about any bit of unique games, whether visual, mechanically, or any other aspect of the game, without mentioning KATAMARI DAMACY, because it is unlike anything else in every aspect, but particularly in the visual department, it takes bizarre Japanese minimalist design to a logical extreme. Sticking with a very bright color palette, fairly simple character and environmental models, and just essentially creating a look that pushes the weird factor to 20 because it was already at 10 from the gameplay itself. Despite the fact it's very simplistic and strange, it actually has a bit of a weird beauty to it as well. It's pleasant despite it being hectic and bizarre. Number 6 is Yoshi's Woolly World, which is obviously a unique looking game on account everything is made of yarn. I mean, there's a couple of other games that do use the yarn aesthetic, like Unraveled, but I don't think that they've ever really accomplished the kind of look that Yoshi's Woolly World has. It just essentially completely nails every aspect of what you would think it would be. And the thing is that it's not sprites, it's actually 3D textured polygons that just actually look like they're intended to. In order to accomplish the look they were going for in this game, they made a lot of the stuff as actual yarn ahead of time to sort of test how it acted, and then tried to replicate that in game, both physically speaking and also by scanning various patterns of yarn. Number 5 is BIOSHOCK, which is a game that is just unmistakable. You can't look at BIOSHOCK and go, what game is this? And it's not because they did a particularly realistic or even particularly unrealistic take on the thing that they were going for. They just did Art Deco in a manner that really hadn't been done before, and that's just to its full extent. Certainly there are games that incorporated Art Deco themes, but they were like, you know what, this is an ocean city that is an entirely Art Deco city. It was made at the height of Art Deco, but it also had the benefit of having modern designers creating it to be able to have gone back on all Art Deco creations as reference and really created something amazing and special. When you look at BIOSHOCK, it's just combining that look with the state of decay it's in. It's nothing that I've seen before or since. And certainly there are games that do a great job displaying decay in front of you, but just there's something magic about how BIOSHOCK does it that I can't tangibly explain. Number 4, FIREWATCH, which can be explained entirely with one little fact. The developer, Campo Santo, is only a few people, and one of them doesn't actually know how to code or do any of that stuff. It's just a guy who does art, and he didn't do video game arts. He did a few video games, but he's more known for doing the art of movie posters, as well as various compositing in Empire. FIREWATCH was created entirely out of a painting he made, and the art style is consistent throughout the whole thing. It's really neat because it derives its inspiration from old parks, guides, and advertisements that would appear in publications, and it really feels like that as you're playing it. It's such a cool looking game. It's kind of cel-shaded, it's kind of not cel-shaded, it's kind of minimalist, but never looks truly minimalist. It's a weird mix of a lot of things. Number 3, Don't Starve manages to kind of look like a Tim Burton claymation movie, but drawn and not completely like a Tim Burton claymation movie. It really manages to have its own unique sense of style while calling up thoughts of other types of styles that you really haven't seen in gaming anywhere else, but sometimes manages to feel a lot like a storybook as well. It also manages to employ a fairly narrow palette without appearing to be too monochrome. It does pull from quite a few different areas, but it keeps them all tonally fairly close to each other, a lot of color bleeding, and does a lot with light and atmosphere. It's just, again, one of those games where you look at it and you're like, that's Don't Starve, which is sort of the point of this list, but I mean, it's one of those games that does it above and beyond even a lot of the other games on this list. Number 2, the original Mirror's Edge had such a unique look to it that really you couldn't mistake anything for it, ever. I don't even know exactly where they drew inspiration from. It's so minimalist in its own extreme minimalist way. Like, it takes minimalism and goes, can we do a minimalist version of this? So many things are devoid of detail instead of just white, but it creates this sort of false, pristine look that just carries through in every aspect that, given the fact the game takes place in a dystopia, makes it just that much more visually impactful. Certainly the second Mirror's Edge carries that same sense of style, but kind of needlessly complicates it a bit. There's a little bit too much to the second Mirror's Edge. The original just kind of, I know it's weird to say, but they really shouldn't have improved on it. Maybe added a little bit more of a poly count, but that simplistic view is just, at this point, completely iconic, and the game series itself deserves, I think, a better chance to do what it does best. And finally, number 1 is The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, which was pretty much the first cel-shaded game that was perfect. And there's a lot of other cel-shaded games that did look cool, and certainly in many respects I say probably the best looking cel-shaded game of all time is Jet Set Radio, but it wasn't the first, and it certainly doesn't look a damn thing like Jet Set Radio. Wind Waker looks like a beautiful cartoon set in a completely different world, and looks so unbelievably foreign to what you would consider realistic that it has an almost Studio Ghibli quality to it. Everything felt so much more alive than any previous Zelda game's people. It delivered on everything you wanted out of Zelda in a completely different way, visually speaking. And it pretty much defined cel-shaded games from that point forward. If you can't hold up to Wind Waker, you can't hold up. Because, frankly, that game still holds up today. The HD remake of it goes above and beyond. But to be completely honest, if I saw a game that looked like the original, I'd still consider that to have good graphics, if not great graphics, and certainly different graphics. What's a game with unique graphics that you really think is just above and beyond? Let's meet in the comments section. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. If you like this video, please click like, and if you're not subscribed, now is a great time to do so because we upload brand new videos every single day. As always, we thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.